gavel comes down. Guilty. Life in prison. The courtroom erupts. The cameras roll. The defendant is led away. And then the judge stands up, collects his papers, and walks out a door you will never see on camera. Because from that moment, his life is never the same again. Here's what nobody shows you after the verdict. How does a judge get home safely after sentencing a mafia boss? Does his family know his real name? Does his neighbor know what he does for a living? Who's sitting in the car behind him on his morning commute? And what happens in the countries where the answer to all of those questions is nobody? Today, we're going to find out. Italy, the country that learned the hard way. The most important lesson in judicial protection wasn't written in a policy document. It was written in blood, on a Sicilian highway. On May 23, 1992, Judge Giovanni Falcone had spent his career dismantling the Cosa Nostra, the Sicilian mafia. In 1986, his maxi trial convicted 342 mafiosi in a single case. Bosses, capos, killers, all of them. The mafia boss, Toto Riina, reportedly toasted with champagne when he heard the verdict. And then he got to work. On the morning of May 23rd, Falcone flew from Rome to Palermo. His motorcade left the airport. Under the highway, buried in a drainage pipe, 500 kilograms of explosives, half a ton, detonated remotely. The blast created a crater 10 meters wide. Falcone, his wife, also a magistrate, and 3 of his bodyguards were killed instantly. 57 days later, his colleague Paolo Borsellino was killed by another car bomb. 90 kilograms of explosives. 5 police officers also died. 2 judges, 8 police officers, in less than 2 months. That was the moment Italy understood that a bodyguard and an armored car were not enough. Today, Italian anti-mafia judges live under conditions most people associate with heads of state. Rotating motorcade routes changed daily. Armored vehicles, multiple decoys. No fixed schedule ever published. Family members relocated. Some judges move house every few months. Judge Nicola Gratteri, who has been under police protection for over 30 years, had assassination plans against him uncovered by security services just recently. A trade union called for civilians to form a protective escort around him. Because even after 3 decades, the threat has never gone away. USA, the system behind the curtain. In the United States, the organization responsible for protecting federal judges is called the U.S. Marshals Service, and they are very good at their job. Quietly. After a high-profile sentencing, federal judges do not walk to their car alone. The marshals assess the threat level of every case. For organized crime, terrorism, and cartel cases, the protocol changes immediately after the verdict. Routes home are never the same twice. The judge may be driven in one of several identical vehicles, so nobody knows which car he's actually in. In extreme cases, temporary relocation. Family moved to a secure location without announcement. But here's what changed everything in the US system. In 2020, a gunman went to the home of federal Judge Esther Salas in New Jersey. He killed her 20-year-old son, Daniel, and shot her husband before taking his own life. The attacker was a lawyer with a case before her court. He found her home address online in minutes. Because in the United States, judges' personal data, home address, family members' names, vehicle registration, was publicly accessible through commercial data broker websites. Anyone could look it up for a few dollars. After Daniel Andel was killed, Congress passed the Daniel Andel Judicial Security and Privacy Act in 2022, named after him. The law orders the removal of judges' personal data from internet databases. But here's the uncomfortable detail. The law passed. The funding didn't. 2 years later, federal judges' personal information was still available online because Congress never appropriated the money to implement the law. The protection exists on paper. The data is still out there. Mexico, where the system broke down. And then there's Mexico, where the question isn't how judges are protected after a verdict. The question is whether a judge survives long enough to deliver one. Mexico's cartels, officially designated as terrorist organizations by the United States, operate by a simple principle they call plata o plomo, silver or lead. Accept the bribe or take the bullet. It's not a metaphor. Between 2006 and today, dozens of Mexican judges and magistrates have been murdered, kidnapped, or forced to flee. Some received notes in their cars overnight. Some found photographs of their children left on their doorsteps. No threatening letter, just a photograph. That's enough. In 2020, the head of the federal police was arrested in the United States on cartel-related charges. In 2024, Ecuador's Attorney General was assassinated. The message across Latin America is clear. The law is a suggestion, and the men with guns are the ones who decide whether you come back home alive. In some Mexican states, judges have requested anonymity, meaning their names do not appear on official rulings, anonymous verdicts, in a supposedly functioning democracy. One federal judge, who asked not to be named, told a journalist, "The bodyguards are to make us feel better. If they really want you, 4 bodyguards change nothing." China, a different kind of danger. In China, judges don't fear the mafia. The mafia fears the judges. Because in China, the outcome of a high-profile criminal trial is rarely a surprise to anyone in the courtroom. The threat to a Chinese judge doesn't come from a criminal organization. It comes from ruling the wrong way for the wrong person in the wrong political climate. The danger isn't a car bomb. It's a reassignment, a quiet investigation, a disappeared career. It's a completely different system and a completely different kind of fear. We'll leave it at that. 3 countries, 3 systems, 3 completely different answers to the same question. How do you protect the person who just made the most powerful enemies in the room? Italy learned its lesson in the worst possible way and built a system from the wreckage. America built the laws, but forgot to pay for them. Mexico is still trying to figure out if the system can work at all when the other side has more money, more guns, and more patience than the government. The gavel is the most powerful sound in a courtroom. But outside that courtroom, it's just a piece of wood.
Here